but I'm joined now by the former Superior Court Judge LaDoris Hazard Cordell. And Judge, I'm so glad you're here tonight because I'd love for you to just start by explaining how unusual is it for a gag order to be expanded to include the attorneys?
Well, KAITLAN, I wouldn't characterize it as a gag order at all. I'd categorize it as the judge giving a reminder to the lawyers in the courtroom to abide by courtroom protocol. Mature adults do not call out, name call, say lies about the judge's staff. I was on the bench for nearly 20 years and presided over hearings and motions and trials, thousands of them, and never once did I ever have a lawyer call out my staff. And I'm especially concerned about the lawyers because every person, before they become a lawyer, has to take a bar exam and pass it. And part of the bar exam is the professional responsibility section, which deals with ethics and which deals with conduct of an attorney in the courtroom and outside of the courtroom. So when a lawyer does this, as in this case, this lawyer needs to have a refresher course on that. So the thing that comes up to me, though, is why would a lawyer do this and so aggravate a judge, where the judge is the sole decider of the Trump's fate and in the fate of the alleged empire? And all I can come up with is that it is a strategy. It is a strategy that they're using when they know they're losing and losing badly, when their ship is sinking. So they need to disrupt. They need to find a way that this trial can either be interrupted or can be reversed on appeal. And maybe that's by so aggravating and irritating the judge that the judge loses it and shows bias.
Well, oh, that's interesting. So you think they're trying to provoke him, basically?
Absolutely. There's no other rational reason for them to do this. And so the judge could, for example, start saying things or even using body motions that show the irritation and the bias that he's building against the other side. And that can be sufficient for a reversible error. But I do believe this judge, because he's been on the bench a long time and has likely had lawyers and litigants in his courtroom that have been obstreperous and have been juvenile or immature, and he's apparently found a way to deal with them. So I don't think this strategy is going to work for them. Trial judges, basically, the good ones, basically have a mantra that they follow, and it is be short, long of fuse and thick of skin. And I think this judge is following that mantra.
Long of fuse and thick of skin. I mean, if you looked at what was happening today, it was just remarkable because what they were so upset about and what they were complaining about was the judge talking to his clerk. They were passing notes to one another on the bench. But I mean, you're a judge. Is any of that unusual for a judge to be communicating with their principal clerk who's seated right next to them?
Right. So trial lawyers, trial judges, many of them, and including me, had law clerks. And these are lawyers. They're very, very good lawyers. That's why they are there assisting a judge. And their role is to research cases, to advise, give opinions regarding their various legal issues that come up. So is it unusual for a judge to have a law clerk that is giving information to the judge when the judge requests it? Absolutely not. These are hardworking lawyers, and actually to get to this position, you have to be highly qualified to even be there. So no, there's nothing unusual about it, and law clerks are an important part of the life of a trial court judge.
And I should note, I mean, the judge, what's clearly bothering him is that he's worried about the safety of his clerk and the other staff. He said that they've been inundated with threats since all of this trial began. But I do want to ask you, Judge, before we let you go, about the other gag order related to the former president tonight. And that's because a federal appeals court has temporarily frozen that one in Washington, D.C., which essentially means, I believe, until the oral arguments, and tell me if I'm wrong, that Trump is now free to criticize potential witnesses in this case.
That's right. So with the appellate court saying we're going to just stay that gag order that Judge Chutkan issued, they're basically saying there is no gag order. And what the judge issued there is more of a gag order in that he's saying she is saying you cannot talk about or say things about witnesses, because we know when Trump says things, it's dog whistle, not very well disguised, to his followers to go after these people. So I'm really bothered by the fact that there is a stay that was issued. But when it is issued, it means there is no gag order. He is free to continue doing what he was doing before then, which is to call out people, call names out, and I believe endanger the lives of these people that he is talking about.
Yeah, Mark Meadows, Bill Barr, I mean, you just see it regularly on
Yes.
Truth Social. We'll see what happens in those oral arguments. Judge Ladoris Hazard Cordell, as always, thank you.
Sure.
The former president is